Welcome to the CoLeague experience, where we delve into bold insights, experimentation, and groundbreaking leadership strategies. In today's episode, we explore the emotional challenges of farewells in organizational settings and their crucial role in driving growth and transformation. We'll uncover stories of parting ways with people, dreams, and habits to embrace new directions for success. Let's dive in. A few months ago, another cycle of our CoLeague CEO Forum came to an end. Throughout the past year, we facilitated the monthly meetings of this wonderful group, and now we're saying goodbye. Naturally, in such an intimate and close-knit setting, emotional connections form over time that make parting difficult, so the end of the program triggers all sorts of responses to separation. There are the deniers. We're not really saying goodbye. We can keep in touch through WhatsApp, and so on. There are the extenders. We can continue meeting once, There are the cutters. All right, bye. So-and-so left the group. Farewells are part of our personal lives, but they're also part of the reality of organizational life. Sometimes an organization needs to know how to say goodbye to its dreams so that new dreams can be woven. Sometimes it needs to part with plans and aspirations so that new directions can be born. And sometimes it needs to separate from old habits that may have worked in the past, but it's time to say farewell to them. There are farewells that play a formative role within the organizational framework. For example, separations from people who were an important part of the organization, perhaps those who founded it, and at some point they move on. There are those whose departure marks the end of an era. The farewell from the person becomes intertwined with the farewell from a period that was and will not return. We can't always see this connection when it's happening. Sometimes we can only identify the link between saying goodbye to a particular person and the end of a period in hindsight. There are cases where the situation is reversed. The organization changes, it grows, changes its face, its DNA. Sometimes in a storm, and sometimes gradually and slowly. And those who held significant roles in the organization in the previous era don't find themselves in the new era. This isn't a pleasant process. Sometimes it's a bit cruel. Usually it ends in separation. It happens that the difficulty of personal farewell blocks the organizational farewell. We worked with a biotech company that had grown from a small research team of 12 people into a commercial operation with over 200 employees. The founding scientist, who had led the research division for 8 years, was brilliant at discovery, but struggled with the systematic processes needed for regulatory approval and commercial-scale manufacturing. The company needed to transition to a completely different operational model to bring their breakthrough therapy to market. The founder kept trying to maintain the informal, exploration-based culture that had served them well in early research phases. But this approach was preventing the organization from developing the structured protocols required for FDA approval. The separation was painful for everyone involved, but it allowed the company to complete their clinical trials and eventually bring their treatment to patients who desperately needed it. Sometimes there's no choice, and for the organization to perform the transformation it aspires to make, it must part with those who don't allow it to make the change. These are usually key people who, for various reasons, don't connect with the change the organization is striving for. These same people struggle to say goodbye to the organization as they knew it, and because of their role and position, the entire organization can't move forward. From our experience, we can say 2 things about this. It creates a lot of frustration and pain for both sides. Almost always, it ends in a separation accompanied by the insight that it should have happened much earlier. Or, as Etty Ankri sings, "And mother says that's how people are. When it's hard for them to finish, they drag out the endings." There are organizations that drag out the endings. They're stuck in this kind of limbo for a very long time. On one hand, a desire to part with the organization's past, and on the other hand, difficulty parting with those who are stopping the change. Let's set aside for a moment those situations where the difficulty in parting is specific because of a manager who personally struggles to part with those who worked alongside them for many years. This happens too. In parentheses, we'll say that we encounter far more managers who would prefer to postpone and then postpone again a decision to terminate when they know, with certainty, that this is the correct organizational decision, rather than those who have a quick trigger finger. This surprises us quite a bit. That even among very experienced people, those who have been in the most senior positions for quite some time, there's such difficulty in making correct decisions when it comes to terminations. We saw this clearly with a software company that had built its reputation on a specific development methodology that worked well for their original product line. When they decided to expand into enterprise solutions, they needed to adopt completely different development practices, security protocols, and client management approaches. The original development team leader, who had been with the company for over a decade and was beloved by the team, simply couldn't adapt to the new requirements. The CEO kept hoping the situation would resolve itself, creating project after project to try to find a place where the old approach would work. This went on for 18 months while the company struggled to gain traction in the enterprise market. When they finally made the difficult decision to restructure the development leadership, the transformation that followed was remarkable. They secured 3 major enterprise contracts within 6 months. In our opinion, in most cases, when an organization struggles to part with those who can't make the change the organization is required to make, it's because there's internal ambivalence toward the change. In the change the organization wants to make, it's parting with its past. In certain senses, it's parting with its identity. This can evoke a wide range of emotions in employees. It can arouse hope, but also great anxiety. For people who have spent many years in the same organization, a significant change in the organization's identity might undermine their personal identity. Therefore, when talking about changes, even those that are very positive and carry good news and hope, we need to remember those components of personal and organizational identity that will be left behind. We need to know how to say goodbye to them. We need to respect the difficulty of leaving them behind and try to create a new identity. This doesn't mean we should extend the farewell and the pain that accompanies it, but it does mean it's important to invest time and thought in the meanings of the farewell and in shaping the way it's right to carry it out. Understanding this dynamic helps us guide organizations through these challenging transitions. The key is recognizing that organizational change often requires both strategic thinking and emotional intelligence. When we honor the difficulty of what's being left behind while staying clear about the necessity of moving forward, we create space for genuine transformation to occur. And that's a wrap for today's podcast, where we explored the necessity of farewells in organizational life, highlighting how strategic separations can lead to growth and transformation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with your friends and colleagues so they can also stay updated on the latest news and gain powerful insights. Stay tuned for more updates.